Welcome to this series, Jesus Said What? It was originally a longer sermon series that became a Right Now media program, is now a podcast series, Gospel Rant, and on my YouTube channel, Dr. Bill Sinyard, one word. And of course, available for weekend conferences. If you're interested, let me know, Bill at gospel-app.com. In this talk, we're going to look at the fourth, fifth, and sixth Beatitudes, or those that I refer to as the second triad. Our new patron, Jesus, embraces us as we are, but he doesn't leave us there. The righteous King pours out his Spirit, and we begin to change, noticeably so, to be changed better, yeah? So welcome to my YouTube channel. And hey, if you benefit from this series, like it, subscribe it, leave a comment. We love comments, questions, but it also helps us, the algorithms, get this out to more people. Thanks ahead of time. Second triad, Matthew 5:6. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. All right, righteousness. Enviable, my translation, are the ones who are obsessed with the well-being of others and social justice for all. I will see to it that they are filled with God's righteousness. So here's the right question. What did they hear when Jesus said righteousness? Let me give you an example. Think of a man named Sam and a woman named Angelica. Good folk. Neither have done anything, really wrong in their lives. They don't have a criminal record. They haven't abused anyone, robbed a bank. They haven't committed felonies. A couple of parking tickets, maybe. They attend church regularly. They pray. They give. They tithe. Would they be considered righteous? Yes or no? Biblically, the answer is yes and no. Dikaio and dikaiosune, that's Greek for righteousness, were often used in the Roman and Greek text and also the Hebrew equivalents to speak of obedience to the law, right behavior, doing the right things per the letter of the law. Sam and Angelica's behavior could legitimately be described as righteous in that narrow sense, and they would even be seen as righteous people by many in a guilt-innocence context. But remember, Jesus is not speaking to a guilt-innocent context. His world is honor-shame. In the honor-shame world, righteousness has a more expansive, other-oriented drive. So righteousness is at its very core relational and other-oriented. Think hospitality in the Old Testament. Think social justice. Yeah? So here's an example that I hope makes some sense. In the Jewish history, there had been good, righteous kings and evil, not righteous kings. And what made the difference? Well, primarily it was their relationship with God. Did they rule dependent upon God, his wisdom, his direction? Did they fear his judgment and wrath? Did they meditate and rule according to Torah? Were they loyal to Yahweh and seek to establish his worship throughout the land? Yeah. A righteous king then is first and foremost in relationship with God, dependent upon God. And his righteousness is actually sourced from God. King Solomon got that. In Psalm 72, 1-2, he prays, "Endow the king with your justice, O God, the royal son with your righteousness. He will judge your people in righteousness, your afflicted ones with justice." So it's something that is endowed by God, so be it by God. So literally, give the king your justice and your righteousness, and he'll judge your troubled people with justice and righteousness. So it doesn't come naturally from the wise King Solomon. It comes from God through the king, and now through us. So God's righteousness and justice are not about being saved as much as, or choosing to be good. It's a stuff that's regularly sourced from God, based on an ongoing relationship that the client king, the patron benefactor, has with us, the clients. And it produces within us a concern for others, a desire for justice, social justice, hospitality, equity, close to what we mean by social justice today, really a better definition of social justice. And second, the good and righteous king was the one who sought to bring a happy life for all of his subjects. You get the other orientation. That's how they honored and reflect the graciousness of their patron God, Yahweh. He does it for them and through him, the king, to others. So doesn't that make sense with what we know about Jesus? Jesus' first sermon were the appropriate first words of a righteous king who's rising to his throne. So hear them in that light. Luke 4:18. The Spirit of the Lord is on me. All right, that's the source, because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. That's that other orientation. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners, the recovery of sight for the blind, to release the oppressed, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. Just, you get the idea. The king is really for the others who serve the king. That's the heart of the righteous king. And that's the heart of a righteous Jesus follower. One commentator says the adjective form of righteous, quote, describes a person rightly related to God and concerned for the well-being of others. That's what a righteous man, a righteous woman is all about. It should be observable. And that's exactly what Jesus, the king, was doing on the hillside. So remember Angela and Sam? Did they not only do right things, did they want the well-being of others? Were they other-oriented, or were they just in good behavior? Were they concerned about societal fairness and equity? Are they into caring for widows and orphans, the poor, the sick, the immigrants? Or were they concerned about justice and that judicial institutions treat all fairly? So righteousness is that single word that captures the two great commands, to love God and to love others. And those who do it are called righteous, dikaiosune in the Greek. So what does it look like to hunger and thirst after righteousness? I mean, I think you can get it now, right? In this honor-shame context, it most likely picks up the modern idea of social justice. To hunger for righteousness, then, is to be very concerned about the well-being of others, equity and justice in the land, institutions that care for everyone equally, care for those who can't take care of themselves, safety nets. They would be concerned for justice, fairness in the workplace. They would care for widows, orphans. You get the idea, right? They would reach out and care for immigrants. Just saying. These are hungering and thirsting for righteousness because the Spirit of God, who cares for those, the blind, the oppressed, the helpless, is in their inner being and is powerful, is transforming. So I interpretively translate the Beatitude, enviable are the ones who are obsessed with the well-being of others and social justice for all. Something is happening to those people. And so circling back to Sam and Angelica, when the spirit of our new patron comes, they begin to do right because they care for their neighbors more. Yeah? It's not just their behavior, it's their care for other people. Something internally has happened. Not perfectly, but noticeably. In Greek, kortazo speaks about being filled. So filled with what? And I'm going to suggest that they're being filled, a little or a lot, with God's righteousness, which looks like God's concern for others, like in Solomon's prayer, so that they can go and treat others with the heart of righteousness like a righteous king or queen. So it makes sense. If they're running around sacrificially helping others, their cup will empty pretty quickly. So Jesus promises to keep filling their righteousness cup. Ephesians 3 speaks of being filled to the full with the fullness of God. That's probably it. If not, Sam and Angelica will burn up pretty fast. So will I. So the whole verse then, enviable are the ones who are obsessed with the well-being of others and social justice for all. I will see to it that they are continually filled with God's righteousness. Here's John Barclay. Quote, grace, it turns out, is not an idea or a thing, but a radical divine dynamic. Yeah, this righteousness, this grace that comes from God is a dynamic. It's not just for us, it's really more for others through us. So I want to put an image around this. I'm calling it the Beatitude loops. I think this is going to be very helpful to understand these three Beatitudes and how the first part of the phrase lines up with the second part. Right? So I said, enviable are the ones who are obsessed with the well-being of others and social justice for all. I will see to it that they are filled with God's righteousness. Is Jesus saying that if someone is obsessed enough with helping others, then, and only then, God's going to go, yeah, it looks like they're pretty empty, I'm going to fill them? Is Jesus saying that this is a new law or kingdom principle? And if they do it, they'll get filled. But if they don't do it, too bad. Many people, many commentators think so, but I think it's unlikely. I am going to suggest that it's better to see these triads as circular. beatitude loops, I'll call them. The person who is living out of a new concern for the well-being of others is showing that they have been filled with Jesus' righteousness, a little or a lot. And Jesus commits to these as a righteous patron as they go out and pour into others at great cost to them. Jesus has their backs and will keep filling them with God righteousness so they will continue to be able to go and fill others, and on and on. It's a loop. It's not a principle, if-then thing where it's a carrot stick. If you do this, then I'll do this. It's if you're doing this, it's real obvious that I'm filling you. And by the way, as you keep doing that, I'm going to keep filling you. So it's a circular thing. It's Jewish rhetoric. This is how you know that you are my disciples, if there's evidence of this kind of love. The source of love is always from Jesus. It's not a quid pro quo. Jesus already paid for that. He already promised that, right? So, blessed are the merciful. The next beatitude or macarism, for they will be shown mercy. Merciful. Enviable are the merciful, since they will be given mercy. Enviable are the merciful, since they will be given merciful. I think that translates, picks up the nuance better. Though it's often read that Jesus is doing the cat and stick thing in this beatitude as well. You know, if you just worked hard, showed enough mercy, then maybe God will finally show some mercy to you. But if you don't, and that is a cruel thing to tell people who have been shown very little mercy in their lives, like the people on the hillside. But look, this is the joke and the tragedy behind the parable of the magnanimous king and boneheaded servant in Matthew 18. The king showed mercy, forgave all the servant's debt, restored him to honor and position, but the servant showed no mercy to another person who owed him. What's the deal? Well, he didn't have the king's mercy inside of him. That was Jesus' point. He needed to run back and get filled with mercy, right? So he proved to be a person of shame. But the people on the hillside, Jesus said, I'm giving you mercy. I'm filling you up with my mercy. Enviable are the ones who were once necessarily so self-focused, but who are now experiencing something that didn't exist before, an increasing heartfelt concern for the well-being of others around them. In the meantime, their ongoing well-being is my chief passion, and I tell you, they will be given mercy by me. It's a beatitude loop. Jesus says that in my presence, the rejects will begin to feel mercy for others. The ones who have been treated with no mercy are going to begin to feel mercy for others, not because of their hard work or effort, because they finally realize that's the thing to do, but because of mine in them and through them. Yeah? Last one in this triad. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed or enviable are the pure in heart, katharos te cardia. This is the exact phrase that is in the Septuagint rendering of Psalm 24, verse 4. Certainly Jesus has this psalm in mind as he quotes this verse. And here's Psalm 24. Who may ascend the hill of the Lord? Who may stand in his holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart, who does not lift up his soul to an idol or swear by what is false, he will receive blessing, baruchah, from the Lord, and vindication, righteousness, from God his Savior. Such is the generation of those who seek him, who seek your face, O God of Jacob. Psalm 24, 3-6. So look, this is the question in the mind of the Jews. What do I need to do in order to earn God's favor? That's the quid pro quo, right? So that God would legally have to bless me. Well, the typical Jewish remedies were religious, right? Sacrifice, tithe, the celebrations, but was that enough? Yeah? What is this pure of heart thing? What must I do to be good enough for that audience with God? Who is worthy enough? Well, the psalmist says those who have clean hands and a pure heart. So let's look at them. Clean hands, likely an idiom for righteous behavior. Well, yeah. So have you done enough? Have you shown by your deeds that you love God and love others enough? Well, no, there's only been one person in history who did it enough, and that's Jesus. All the rest of us fall short. So none of us have truly clean hands, clean enough. And it gets worse, this pure heart. Oh my goodness. That refers to your motivation, your intentions. Are they other focused? Do you really, really, really love others more than you love yourself? Remember our two friends, Sam and Angela. Their rap sheet looked really good. They'd probably be elected deacons or elders, but their motivation was more about themselves, perhaps, than others, maybe. So in Psalm 24 terminology, maybe they didn't have a pure heart, even though it looked like compared to the rest of us, they had pure hands. Pure heart loves God with all their heart, mind, and soul, and loves others that same way. Come on, who does that? Well, the psalmist expands on the idea of a pure heart. It's the one who does not lift his soul up to an idol. Any idol. Look, we sin all the time. We have so many idols. So what does it mean to see the face of God? This is, I think, the core of the whole thing. Remember, this is going to be a beatitude loop. What does this seeing God look like and feel like? Because it's those people who will have pure hearts. Here we go. What does seeing the face of God look like? I'm going to suggest it looks like and feels like a mother with her infant. She's holding the child close to her face. The child's eyes lock onto hers. She smiles and coos. The infant responds, and an attuning moment takes place, an attunement moment. The child is secure in that loving space in front of the mother's face. Attachment theorists suggested subconsciously the child is asking, is there anyone there for me? And that's the same question that the Jews were asking of God. And I'm asking of God. In that special attunement place, in the face of God, the child has his or her answer. Yeah, there is someone. God's there. The mother's there for you. And for us, God's there. Jesus, the Spirit, is there for us. So those who are experiencing purity in heart are the ones who miraculously, like that child, are physically, emotionally, and spiritually resting in the arms of God, abiding, looking up into his loving eyes for a moment, undistracted by all of the other things, the idols swirling around us. And he becomes our emotional, spiritual co-regulator. Infants can't emotionally regulate without their parents. The mother is a co-regulator for the child. And they feel safe. They feel secure. They feel loved. They're digging it for a moment in time. And we need that. To get there, we need the active working of the Spirit in our inner being, empowering us, sourced by heaven, sourced by God, over and over and over and over. It can happen, a little or a lot. The people on that hillside came anxious, looking for an answer to their question, is there anyone there for me? And somehow something happened, a miracle, where they left with an answer and a confirming experience. There was one important person who was there for them, and they rested in his sight. That's the idea. And their hearts became purified. Enviable are the ones who can rest in God's arms like a newborn child. They see in his face, that's the smiling upon them, and they know that he is there for them. And so you get the beatitude loop. The infant is not designed to emotionally self-regulate. They aren't able until their caregiver co-regulates, attunes with them emotionally. Likewise, we can't spiritually, emotionally self-regulate. Not really. We need God to be our co-regulator, so he must be the one who must still and always spiritually regulate us when we're in his presence before his face, which takes a miracle. Ongoing miracle. I'm not talking salvation. Then in that place, that moment, we've all been there once or twice, right? Hopefully more than that. Then we're seeing God and we're feeling spiritually secure. And we begin to respond to stress triggers differently and temptations differently. We won't need to look to other measurement sources as much. We won't trigger as quickly. We can become better reconcilers. That's the next beatitude. So have you felt that? That's what Jesus is saying in the Sermon on the Mount, is I come to give you that. You had to experience once in your salvation, but maybe you were so young you don't recall it now. So here's what you do so that you can experience it. Ask the Spirit inside of you to make you feel the height and width and length and depth of the love of Christ for you and for others. And just keep asking until you feel that attunement before the face of Jesus. All right? So let me do a summary of the second triad of Beatitudes. If the first three Beatitudes relate to who Jesus is speaking to on that hillside, and still today, the second triad reflects the interchanges that the gospel of Jesus makes and in our hearts and motivations in his presence. Yeah? And here it is. We hunger for righteousness. The crowd came to Jesus feeling isolated, unworthy, unlovable, and naturally, humanly speaking, self-focused. They had to be. That's just our nature. but they left feeling right with God and wanting to lean into the lives of others more. It would have been noticeable. Boy, we could use that today, right? A little or a lot. They wanted to raise others from shame too. They wanted to enter into social justice. They also felt mercy for others. They came focused on their own need, needing mercy themselves. They were survivors, but they left not only feeling God's mercy for them, but God's mercy for others. And then pure in heart. They came anxious and stressed and lonely and isolated, but in the moment on that hillside, they rested in Jesus' loving arms, more at peace, and depending upon them as their patron, benefactor, and shalom. And so they were no longer drawn towards the addictions and towards the other idols. Yeah? Amazing. And this is what Jesus still does today. So here's the final word. Now we begin to see what the Sermon on the Mount is all about. It's not just a new class on how to live principles that we're just on our own. That's just such deism and humanism combined. Right? And how has that gone for you? No, listen, if you are in the arms of God, a child of God, being in that attunement moment, you will feel a little more full of your own sense of identity and worth from Him. You just don't need others to fill you as much. You're being filled by God out of His fullness and His mercy a little bit. You're in a different emotional headspace. You can forgive easier. You're not taking yourself so seriously. You can pursue reconciliation through dialogue and intervention a little easier. You can agree with people or disagree with people without going into a trigger. You can even take them to court, but you're going to feel differently. You may even feel a little bit of empathy and benevolence for the person who hurt you. A little. You're receiving a sense of real justice from God's fault, and so you're going to need it less from the people who hurt you or the judicial institutions here. That's the fingerprint of Jesus and His kingdom, and you're more enviable. Well, here's how Luther saw it. This is an expanded and interpretive rendition of something he said. Quote, "What? Can't you see that you are responding out of your old ratty phileo heart? Run as quick as you can to the living water of Christ and begin to access by faith, ask for His love that He has for the one who hurt you. As you submit to the Spirit in this by faith, you will begin to notice something. You will argue for your position less. You will feel the need to justify your anger and hurt less often. Even if you have a wildly strong case for being in the right, you will need to convince others less. You'll hold to your rights a little less enthusiastically. You'll begin to see that Jesus already paid for that crime against you. Just ask and be filled with the Spirit again and again whenever you need. And boy, do you need Him. Then you will begin to react like a resident of the first world less often, and you will find yourself stepping up to the throne again as a child of the King more often. You will just begin to love God and others with His love. There will be at last movement towards reconciliation. It may only be 5% or 10% of the way, but it will be noticeable. Martin Luther, Posture of the Ground, Prayer. So here's some engaged questions for you. Number one, what did you learn today that you didn't know before? Do you agree or disagree? Push back. Engage number two. Here is our interpretive translation of the second triad of Beatitudes. How has the presence of Jesus changed these people? Here are the Beatitude loops. What jumps off the page to you? Enviable are the ones who are obsessed with the well-being of others and social justice for all. I will see to it that they are filled with God's righteousness. Enviable are the merciful to others. That tells me that you are experiencing His mercy for you over and over. Enviable are you who rest dependent in God's arms like a newborn child. You will see His face smiling upon you and know that He is there for you. Engage question number three. Here's John Barclay. Quote, within this community, honor, also rightness, does not have to be sought. All the honor that counts has already been given or will be given by God. Believers are freed from the need to establish their honor through competition or in retaliation against those who harm them, and they can afford to grant honor without reservation to others. In fact, Paul outlines a paradoxical inversion of the normal honor quest. In loving one another, believers strive to take the lead not in claiming honor, but in giving it to one another. Because this is done in a reciprocal way, no one is left demeaned, but all are supported within a community where every member matters. Close quote. So, what thoughts popped into your head? Push back. Has this been your experience? See you next time. Remember, the core of the gospel is that because of all that Jesus has done on your behalf, God loves you as you are, not as you should be or could be. Yeah? See you next time. Take heart, child of God.